first base and outfield are the two. What do we do in this spot? Obviously, Max Muncy out for the wild card game, likely out beyond that. But at least for this game, you've got a decision to make with one outfield spot besides Mookie Betts and besides AJ Pollock, and one first spot at first base. So at the first base spot, I think there's three obvious candidates. It's Matt Beaty, it's Albert Pujols, and it's Cody Bellinger. Dodger Blue, we ran a poll asking fans who you would like to see. The options were Beaty, Bellinger, Pujols, or a platoon. When I checked, 22% said Beaty, 25% said Bellinger, 24% said Pujols, and 28% said platoon. So obviously, based on the matchup. You've got a right-hander on the mound. Albert Pujols is a right-handed batter. Beaty and Bellinger are both lefties. I have a very strong opinion here that will surprise nobody. But for you, those three, and we can get to the outfield conversation in a moment, although they are tangentially related, who would you have as your starting first baseman?
I'm a little surprised to hear how high Bellinger was pulling.
Oh my gosh, it's shocking to me.
Yeah. I wouldn't expect that given what the fan base is generally.
I think they heard Daniel. Daniel on our live show last night was just like sipping the Bellinger Kool-Aid. I couldn't believe it. So maybe Daniel's just a really persuasive guy on these live post games.
Maybe. I would probably also go Bellinger.
Okay.
Matt Beaty probably provides you with the most offense, but in a one-game playoff, there's no guarantee he could go 0 for 3. He could go 3 for 3. I'll take the elite defense at first base, and then if you need more offense later in the game, you can move Bellinger to center and put in Beaty at first for whoever ends up playing the third outfield spot.
Okay, I'm going to save my thoughts because I'm going to combine my thoughts on outfield and first base simultaneously. So outfield then, if you've got Bellinger at first, you're probably looking at, I suppose Matt Beaty could be an outfielder. Chris Taylor could be an outfielder, and Gavin Lux would be an outfielder. Now, if Beaty were there, you're obviously not putting him in center field. That would require Mookie Betts moving over to center field. But if you've chosen to go Bellinger at first base, who would you put, either Taylor or Lux? Well, I guess Taylor would be in center field. Lux, potentially center field, potentially right field. Matt Beaty would strictly be a right fielder. So who would you choose for that spot?
Chris Taylor, as long as he's healthy. He's been dealing with the neck thing on and off for the last month or so. If he's healthy, I think he's the guy.
Okay. Here we go. So I respect you. So this is not a disagreement like in anything other than I've seen so much of Bellinger and I've seen so much of Taylor, and it's a one-game playoff, and I need offense. Like, I just feel like at the very least, give me something that I can count on, which is that Matt Beaty or whoever, our first baseman and our outfielder, are going to get at least 3 at-bats. I know that for positive. And I know there is a massive gap between everybody in Bellinger and everybody in Chris Taylor, save Billy McKinney, but he's not part of this conversation. Defensively, I totally respect. Chris Taylor is definitely the best option besides Bellinger in the outfield. Bellinger is definitely the best option at first base defensively. I just struggle with how many opportunities are they going to have in those spots to actually impact the game? And that's a mystery. But I did a little bit of digging, and here's the argument that I would make. So my answer is I would put Matt Beaty at first base, and I would put Gavin Lux in the outfield. Those would be my 2 options. And part of the reason is this. And part of the reason is Max Scherzer is on the mound for the Dodgers. So Max Scherzer strikes out 34.1% of the players that he faces. Every time a hitter comes up, 1 out of every 3 of them is striking out, not even putting the ball in play. 35% of them are hitting ground balls, which is 10% less than league average. 32% of them are hitting fly balls, which is 12% more than league average, I believe. So for me, I'm looking at Scherzer and saying he's going to strike out 1 out of every 3 guys he sees. 1 out of every 3 is going to hit a ground ball, which isn't very many. And 1 out of 3 is going to hit a fly ball, which, whatever, I'll take my chances on that one. Personally, I've said this, Mookie Betts is my center fielder. Like, move Mookie there and put your best defensive player in center field. That's Mookie Betts. I would put my best bats in there to start the game, as long as Max Scherzer's in the mound, knowing that he's going to miss a lot of bats, and I'll take my chances that the offense can put the pressure on, that they can wear Wainwright down. And as soon as he comes out of the game, and you feel like, hey, Treinen, for example, is a guy that a ball gets put in play a little bit against him, then I'm totally fine with 6th inning, 7th inning, 8th inning, going to Bellinger in center field, going to Pujols if you can get him in against a lefty at first base, whatever. Now, let me add one more thing, because against right-handed pitching, this is the other big data point for me that I think matters. Albert Pujols, like, as much as anybody loves him, He has a 495 OPS against right-handed pitching, okay? And I believe career versus Wainwright, he's 1 for 10 with 6 strikeouts. So there is no justification for putting Albert Pujols in this game. He's not good enough defensively to justify how bad he is offensively. Like, Cody Bellinger is better against right-handed pitchers than Albert Pujols is. Cody Bellinger's offensive numbers are ugly everywhere. They're better than Pujols's. Matt Beatty has a 111 weighted runs created plus against right-handed pitching this season. He's also, you know, whether you buy into this or not, he was 3 for 3 with a home run in his last game, and he had a go-ahead home run the game before that. So he's hitting as well as he has. So I would throw him. And then Lux is 12 for his last 36 against right-handed pitchers with more walks than strikeouts. Now, I understand that both of those guys are going to be defensive. I'll be safe and say they're below average defensively. I'm not going to try and justify like, they're not that bad. Like, it's below average defensively. But I move Mookie to center field. I put Lux in right field. I take my chances with Scherzer striking everybody out, and there's no balls put in play. Matt Beatty at first base, and trusting that even if each of those guys were to make an error, that their offensive contributions are going to be better. Because the thing to me is, like, if you have such a deep 4, 5, and 6, who you have in the 7 and 8 spot are going to be coming up every time Will Smith gets on base, every time Justin Turner gets on base. And so I know nobody wants to just throw those away, but for me, those are critical moments. So I'll let you respond, react to anything you just heard.
No, I think it's definitely a fair opinion. I don't think there's a wrong opinion here. The last month is kind of complicated.
Austin Barnes is a wrong opinion. Billy McKinney's a wrong opinion. Aside from those two, Albert Pujols may be in the wrong opinion category. Besides that, I think I would give you any of the 5.
Yeah, there are a lot of different combinations. The last month has kind of complicated things. Lutz has come up and played well. Matt Beatty has gotten some bats and been hot lately. I think if I were to make a prediction, I think you would get Taylor in center, Beatty at first, with Bellinger coming in at some point, whether it's center field or first base, as a defensive replacement.
Okay.
I think that's how they'll most likely start. I agree with you in that. I think the most probable scenario is they go offense early and hope that, you know, and of course, Chris Taylor's played plenty of center field, so you don't really worry about him there. I would have concerns starting Lutz in center field. He's played well for someone who wasn't an outfielder before the last month.
With the biggest caveat ever, he has played well.
Yeah, no, he has. He has impressed in center field for someone who wasn't an outfielder. And I think, you know, next year could be a spot where we see more of him. But in a one-game playoff, I don't think you would put him out there. I think you need 3 guys who are experienced outfielders, whether that's Chris Taylor, whether that's Cody Bellinger, guys who are going to give you solid defense, and that you know, nothing against him because he's made a ton of progress in a really short amount of time defensively.
I mean, do you think Mookie in center field, like, is that an idea that makes any sense to you?
The question I would ask is, like, what end there?
Yeah.
To what end?
To justify putting a better bat in right field, whereas you trust those guys way less in center field, would be my argument.
Yeah, I guess I think you would rather have Lutz in center field than right field, because the speed and athleticism isn't the issue.
Yeah. It's everything else. It's everything else besides the speed and the athleticism. Which, again, to be fair, like, you cannot put unrealistic expectations on a guy who, like, has literally never played the position.
Yeah. So I have no problem with putting Mookie in center. I just don't know what good it would do. You know, if that means you're trying to get Matt Beatty in the lineup in right field, well, then who goes to first base? Maybe Pujols if there's a lefty, but that's not how you would start out, like you said. That would be late game. So it's a move that they have. I think no one has any problem with Mookie playing center. But I don't see a scenario that would start him in center aside from Billy McKinney being the starting right fielder.